All right, so today is a special day. I have got two guests with me today. We're talking about this five-step system to protect your farm legacy and what it's all about, and why we came up with it, how it's going to benefit our farmers. But before we get into that, today is all about German American State Bank. I got two coworkers with me. I've got Mandy Ballard and Taylor Burns. So why don't you guys real quick give me an introduction of yourselves? Tell everybody where you're from, your specialty, that kind of thing. So Mandy, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Well, I have been with German American State Bank now for about 8 years. I'm the vice president. I'm an ag and business banker. I got into ag because I grew up on a dairy farm just north of Cedarville. So my parents are there milking about 70 registered brown Swiss cows. So farming is near and dear to my heart for sure. I'm located in our Winnebago branch, and I specialize in really just anything ag, from dairies to grain to livestock. I do a little bit of everything.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you, Mandy. Taylor, give us your details.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here. I grew up just outside of Dakota, Illinois. Been local my whole life, so I currently am an ag and commercial loan officer. I'm specialized more on the renewable energy side, in specific solar panels. We have a very good client of ours that we work with. So I focus a lot of on the renewable energy side, and I've been with German American a little over a year now, about a year and a half, and I am in the German Valley branch.
Sweet. Well, you're not a stranger to this podcast. You were on during the PPP. We call you Taylor PPPP Burns or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So you've been on here before. So thanks, guys, for joining me. I really appreciate it. So let's just dive right into this five-step system. So what I guess try to answer a couple different questions. What is the goal or idea of the process of the five steps? Really at the end of the day, we focused on this as a team, right? And we've had a couple lenders meetings over this. I think the three of us have tried to refine it down to where it stands today, and maybe it's not 100% finished, and it's going to be a fluid and evolving situation um, as things change and evolve throughout time. But the goal, I think, for us as lenders, and the thing that we want to do is we want to be different, right? We want to bring something of value to the table, something that drives, uh, good quality discussions, trusted advisor, put a network of people together that help, farmers grow, help them look at all the different, aspects of their business that they have at risk or that they're doing well or that they could do better on. And so it's a nice format for us to just kind of run through a system and say, have you thought about these five things? And as it you think about these five things, this is how it means to you, or this is what it means to your your farm business, to your banking relationship, relationship with your tax advisor, insurance person, all of that type of stuff. So I think that's the goal of it, and I think it helps differentiate our team because I think we have just a really quality team. I mean, Mandy, you're an entrepreneur family. You grew up on the farm. I grew up on the farm. Taylor, you're in clean energy. Carrie, our chief lending officer, has been in banking 30 plus years. Warren our president has been in a bunch of different, types of companies, been president of the banks, president of clean energy, renewable alternative energy. And we're starting to even branch out in other areas by hiring Nathan into the CNI side, and we're really branching out, and we've got just a really good team. So I think we're trying to build something that matters and sticks, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess I'm going to just go through, five essential questions that kind of relate to this five-step system, and then we'll just maybe touch base a little bit more on these five questions. So I think at the top of all of this, we talk about, we ask you five questions when we go through this. And, the first question is, do you have a plan for the next generation? And so, um, Mandy, you grew up on a farm. I grew up on a farm. Why is that important?
You know, succession planning is one of those things that it feels overwhelming, so people don't start thinking about it. But it is important. My family's actually going through this right now, so it's all about when is the right time to bring the next generation in. what's everybody's goals in this? Does everybody, if everybody's not on the same page, it can certainly create a lot of problems. And while this is such a key issue, only about 15% of people have anything that even resembles a succession plan. So if anybody doesn't have anything, you're certainly not alone. But it's important to think about just do we need to, like, for example, on my family's dairy farm, do we need to milk more cows to be able to support another family? Do any of my other siblings want to have a piece of this? And for my siblings that are involved, are one of them more interested in one part of the farm than the other? So it is just so much of a focus on just what everybody wants to get out of this, and how to set everything up, structure things so that everybody ends up a winner in the end.
Yeah, and I guess I'll give just a quick example on our farm too, and why this is important. We've got my father's still involved, obviously involved. He's the one that's running it now, and I'm probably targeted as the next in line, and then my boys are my brother's kids or my sister's kids, and so we've always had a goal within Dutch Farms is that the farm always continues. And so I think that, when we say, do you have a plan for the next generation? I think we want to know, like you said, Mandi, what's everybody's goal? Let's start with there, because, if we have an identified successor, what does that, successor want? And if we don't, what is, the person at the helm, what are they trying to get out of it? Is it a sale of the farm? Is it, bringing a mentor in that, potentially could buy it out from them? Or is it, you just haven't identified a successor, or I guess on the other flip side, you have, as Dutch Farms has, and how does that look? How does that transition look so that it's not only healthy for the farm, but it's also healthy for both parties that are being, that are letting go, and the other one that's coming on? So I think, that I don't know if it's cliche to start with that question, but I think it's one of the most important questions as we sit with where we are today, because let's just face it, there's a lot of farmers right now that are getting up there in age, and there's a lot of, there's not a heck of a lot of younger people entering into agriculture. So this is something I think it's got to be really, really important. And so you'd think from a banking standpoint, we would start out with, okay, what's your cash flow? What's your debt levels and all that kind of stuff? And so, I think we really need to start off with is, would you have a plan for the next generation? Yes or no? And then we move from there.
Yep.
Right.
So then, I guess from that point, we quickly transition in the bank side of thinking, right? And so we go to, so that was question number one. Question number two, I think that we focus on is, can you weather the next storm? And so, Mandi, I know you've got some figures on things of that sort. So let's give just a quick overview of weathering the next storm. What do we mean by that?
Yeah, well, the USDA's got a lot of studies out there, but a recent one I've just seen is that there's been a 50% decrease in the net farm income between the years of 2013 and 2018. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That means that's a lot of money to a lot of people, and definitely the people that we care about. So we're all about trying to figure out when prices are good, great, let's make sure we do things that make sense for the farm. You want to really make sure you're thinking about your land costs, your non-land costs, and your family living. And Jeremy, do you want to talk a little bit more about kind of what falls under those?
Yeah, so I think we want to make it simple, right? We could throw a ton of things at people to think about, but if we start simple and then start getting into the details, and so the simplistic part of can you weather the next storm, I think is broke out in those three areas. What are your land costs? So what's the average land cost by the time you factor in what you pay for rent? If you're leasing land, if you have any debt that's against land, what are those? What is that compared to your peers and your farm size? And then you can work through. Do I have too high a land cost? Is that what's preventing me from weathering these challenging economic times if I see some in the future? And then in the non-land side of it, we're really focused, operationally on that. What's our labor cost? What's our cost of production? What's our machinery cost? And so then you can start kind of benchmarking yourself against peers in that area and say, does it cost too much for me to put a crop in? And then where am I over, on that side, or where am I doing really, really well? on that. And then, the final piece is, the family living. I mean, financially, what do you need to draw out of the farm? And that's I think a lot of the times, we focus a lot on land cost and operation cost, but where are we setting ourselves up to weather the storm by having a lower need to draw off the farm? And sometimes you can hedge that against having an off-farm income, but I think the two of them kind of go hand in hand. Either you've got low living expenses, or you have off-farm income, and so we want to address those three key areas if we do come into economic downturn. So.
Yep, and I think some of the things to really think about are where's your money going? Is it going? Are you investing in assets? Are you paying down debt, or are you drawing off some of that? I mean, these farmers are working really hard. You can certainly understand they deserve to celebrate a little bit too. But it's really just a simple where is the biggest area that your cash flow is going, and you got to be aware of that.
Yep. So then I think this next bubble is probably my favorite to talk about. And so we've talked about, do you have a plan for the next generation? Can you weather the next storm? And so the next question we want to ask is, do you have a specialty? What makes you different amongst your peers? And I'll just give you a quick example as it relates to Dutch Farms. What makes us different is I've said it before on this podcast that we grow seed beans for Dairyland Seed. And so that's a specialty that we have because we get paid a premium to do so. There's a lot of nuances that come along with doing that as far as seed treatments, when we can market the grain, purities, how we flush and keep everything pure. But we do get a premium for doing so, and that's a specialty that we have. And so I think a lot of the things, especially as we grow in agriculture, it has become more and more competitive and less farmers out there. I think you got to think about what is it that I can do that's different than somebody else. And we've heard a lot about people that are doing strip till with cover crops. We've talked about a little bit on Tayler, some of your expertise, with the renewable energy. Some renewable natural gas deals on the dairy farms they're starting to become a little bit of a specialty for them. All these types of things, I've heard. I met with a guy that's actually growing rye and some specialty corn that's going to end up in some distillers, for making whiskey. And so, realistically, when you think about it, the world's your oyster when it comes to a specialty. What are you set up to do that makes yourself different? If there's nothing there, that may be okay, but if you're feeling like you just need to enter into that specialty market to make the margins you've talked about, Mandi, and the non-land costs and all that work, let's talk about it. Let's brainstorm and throw ideas out as to what that means, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of the part of that question there. Now the next one is a loaded question, Tayler, and I'm glad that you're handling this. And so the 5 steps, we're at number 4, and it's, are you financially free? So, Tayler, tell us what that's about.
Yeah, that's always the loaded question, and I'm really happy you put it on me. Thanks a lot.
Well, you're Tayler PPP Burns, man.
No, this is always a fun one, and when we think of financially free, and what I failed to mention on the intro part of when we started the podcast is, I have a good amount of underwriting background when it comes to credit, and how we look at how to structure deals and that sort of thing. And when we think of financially free, obviously everybody wants to be financially free in terms of having no debt. But again, there's always the conversation of there's good debt versus bad debt, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, when we think of financially free, we think of, are you in a position at whatever point in time that if any opportunity is presented on the table to you, are you able to jump on that right away?
Yeah.
And what comes into that conversation is, okay, if I'm able to, let's say, purchase a 80-acre farm right across the street,
yep,
how is that going to affect my business? Now, obviously, it'll be a great opportunity for you because it's right across the street. It's close to you. You can, if you need to check on crops or whatever, it's right across the street. But the flip side of that is, what is the opportunity cost if I'm not in that position to do that?
Yeah.
And again, once there's certain benchmarks that we look at in an underwriting standpoint, that if you don't hit those benchmarks, it's going to be tough to take advantage of those opportunities. And again, if you're not in that position, we have strategies and some other methods and tools that we can use to help you get to those positions so that you can jump on those opportunities.
Yep. No, I think that's a great point too. Are you financially free? If you drive deeper, the questions we ask is, what's the value of missed opportunities because you have too much debt?
Right.
Or, on the flip side, I've had some conversations with, some stronger customers that say you're not using your cash and liquidity to its maximum potential because it's not being used to reinvest back into the farm. And so there's a healthy balance there, right, Taylor? And
Right.
and so those matrices help us get there for sure.
Right, and like I said, we have tools that we can help you get there if you need, to see some numbers on paper or whatever. I mean, that a lot of times that just helps. Of course, everyone has numbers in their head 24/7, but when you really put something on paper and you see how that's affecting your business, it can really change your mind and how you run your business.
Yep. Yep. All right, so we're down to the last one. So let's just review real quick. And I know I'm strategically saying some of this stuff just so that it sticks in everybody's head that's listening here. So we're down to the fifth step in our 5-step system to protecting your farm's legacy. So we've talked about, do you have a plan for the next generation? Can you weather the next storm? Do you have a specialty? Are you financially free? And then everybody's favorite here, number 5, is how big of a partner is Uncle Sam? And so, what do we really mean by that, right? I mean, and this is something that I don't think, do people really think about? And it's, this, obviously we're not tax accountants, and so we're not going to give, a ton of tax advice out here, but there's some things that we really need to consider, or at least have you start to, consider and start talking with your tax advisor about. And that is, how big a partner is our Uncle Sam in your business? How much are you giving away in tax? What is that costing you? Versus on the flip side, if you're not paying any tax at all, and your whole goal is to just, reduce tax liability, what cost is that to you in the long term too, right? And so I think in some ways, bankers and accountants are a little bit of an odds because we want you to show income. And so, when you look at that and you say, okay, let's show a little bit of income or enough income that justifies the amount that we're requesting for in financing needs here. And we all know that in the banking world, some of the better the ratios and the better the income, the better the rates, the better the terms. It's just less of a risk type scenario. So what we mean here when we say how big a partner is Uncle Sam, I think we're talking about 3 different categories. One, how do we balance showing enough income that makes a banking relationship a viable one. 2, how do we pay enough tax so that we're investing in our future, whether it's Social Security, things of that sort. And then 3, how are we protecting the fact that we're not giving all the profit away? And that's really the basis of this kind of conversation is that, we can't ignore all 3 of those categories because, we're almost diversifying here, right? I mean, we got to show a little bit of income to be bankable. We probably should pay a little bit into Social Security so that we don't have the minimum when we're wanting to retire. But we also don't want to give it all away. So how do we do that? And obviously we don't have those answers being bankers, but we want you as a farming operation to be thinking about that. And if you haven't had somebody go through that exercise with you, that's the 5th and last one that we just say, have you thought about these things, right?
Yep.
Right.
You got it.
Yep.
So I'm just going to review one more time. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but our 5-step system to protecting your farm's legacy. Do you have a plan for the next generation? Can you weather the next storm? Do you have a specialty? Are you financially free? And how big a partner is Uncle Sam? Summarizes it, right?
You got it.
That's it.
Now, What's cool about this is an exclusive thing to German American State Bank, right?
Right.
It is.
Nobody else has this. So, and we're not going to just give it away. So you guys got to call us, talk to us if you want to be a part of this program and what we bring to the table here. So, if we've I guess in my mind, if we've asked you some thought-provoking questions that you don't know the answer to, you should probably call one of the three of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So if you're in German Valley, you should call Tayler. If you're in the Winnebago area, you should call Mandi. And if you're in the Belvedere area, you should call me, right?
That's
You
right.
got it.
All right, before we wrap this up, short and sweet, do you guys have anything else to add?
Nope. I think we covered it. I feel like should I hit the 5 points again?
Ken, if you want.
No, and the only thing I'll add is just this is really exciting times for us because again we're growing like crazy and we have a lot of exciting things on the table and this is just the beginning. So we got a lot of with you and your podcasts, we've got a couple webinars out there on YouTube that you can check out too that has a lot of great information. So again, we're just trying to specialize in helping you guys out and helping everybody in the area and because that's what we do. We're a community bank and that's what we do. We try to bring it back within the community and like I said, a lot of exciting stuff and this is just the beginning.
Yeah,
Yep.
you definitely hit on a good point there, Taylor. Like we've been doing ag lending since 1907, so we're certainly not new to this, but we are trying to bring some new value.
Yeah. Think about things a little bit unconventionally.
Yep.
Yeah. So last thing I'm going to leave everybody with before we close out here is just how to get in touch with all of us, how to go learn about German American State Bank. So we have a website, www.germanamericanstatebank.com. That's all spelled out, all one word. I know it's lengthy, but if you go to that website, there's links to, if you go to the About Us, I believe is the tab, and then you will, when you click that, you'll be able to see how you get in touch with either Mandi, Tayler, or myself. We're also on Facebook at German American State Bank. We're also on LinkedIn at German American State Bank. And we are now also on YouTube at German American State Bank, where we also have some resources. We've put on 2 virtual seminars. We've done some quick webinars on PPP, things of that sort. So there's some good educational resources there as well. So I thank you two for coming out to Belvedere. I know it's a little ways away, but I appreciate you guys coming here, being on my podcast. And for everybody listening, I hope you learned something. Thank you.